Okay, so on the React challenge on the lower beginner, 3 people participated, everyone answered all the questions. A couple of you struggle a bit in some of them. So let's see the results. So we have Vinay, Adrian, and Giacomo. Okay, so would you like me to review answers of this one? Yeah. So let me just okay. So the first question, we had a function, so it's a component, and so let me just zoom it. Is it readable like this? Maybe a bit more. Yeah, like this. Try to. So if we check the test, we have a component called text. So we need this text, and then the value is going to be what says here in the test as well, my first input. So this one with the exclamation mark. Now we test. Yeah, that's right. So the next one, we have a component called welcome that has to render 2 tags. If we read the test says that the array that contains all the p's should have a length of 2. So we need another p tag. So it's either C or D. Then we check what the text should be here. So it has a capital R, so it should be this one. The next one, we have a component called player that has a prop called person that is being passed here. So we need to pass the props like this, and then this person has a name. So person is an object that has 2 properties, name and score, and in the first p tag we need to return the name. So it would be props.person.name. It has to be inside curly braces because we are inside JSX, and the way to use JavaScript inside JSX is with curly braces. Likewise with score, so props.person.score. If we test it, it's confetti. Now the next question. So we have a user component, and then we are iterating over the prop. So we have the prop user that is an object that has 2 properties, name and age, in the first case. And on the second case, it has first name and last name. So we can't iterate using the dot notation. We need to use the square brackets notation because it's not always the same value. So the map method, so first of all, object.keys is going to be an array with the keys on the object that we pass inside the parentheses. So in the first case, object.keys is going to be an array with two elements. The first one name and the second one age. And here it's going to be an array again with two elements, and the first element is going to be first name, second one last name. So we need to return a div that returns the text with the key and then the value of the object. So the way to get the key is going to be key. But again, are we inside JSX? Yes, right? So we need curly braces. And then the value is going to be props.user. If it were always the same, we could use .key. But because it's dynamic, it changes, we need to use the square brackets key. So props.user, square brackets key. It should be it. Yep. So next one. We have component club tickets, and it has a prop called user that is again an object with two properties. The first one the age, second one the session, and depending of the value of the session and the age, we are going to return one thing or another one. So basically we want to check if the session is afternoon, it's always going to be purchased. So because it doesn't matter the age, in this case it doesn't matter. It's always going to be, the entrance is going to be allowed. So we need to access props.user.session equals afternoon, but then we need to use the question mark. This is like an if. We are checking that whether this is true or false. So when this is true, we are going to return purchased. When this is false, we are going to do the following thing. So we're going to make another check. So if the age is greater than 18, greater or equal 18, it's going to be purchased. Otherwise, sorry, not allowed. So props.user.age should be greater or equal 18, right? And then we need again the question mark, because it's going to be, we need to check if this is true or false. So if it's true, purchased. Otherwise, sorry, not allowed. So let's test it. Confetti again. Okay, so I'll solve the intermediate one now. On the intermediate, we had two participants. Okay, and probably Giacomo solved all of them and Vinay tried. So I'm going to solve it. So again, this is like the one we found before. So we have a function that is going to be a component, and because it is a component, it has to start by capital. So we can see here that the name of the component is text with capital T, text. And now the value is telling us here that the value should equal my first input. So first input, and this should be it. Any questions on this one? No? I'll solve next. So we have a component called president that has some props, has two props, first name and last name. Yes. And then we need to return two tags, two p tags with the text inside first name and then the value of props.firstName. So let's do that. So now we are inside JSX, right? So we need to use curly braces. So props.firstName. And then likewise here, we are inside JSX. So props.lastName. And if we test it, yes, that's right. So now we have a component called textArea that is expecting to find a tag called textArea as well. So we need to type the name of the tag, textArea. And this is it. Yep. Okay, so in this case we have, wait, I can't scroll. Okay, no worries. So we have a component called score details that is going to show us some values relative to these scores. Scores is an array. So in the first case, total is the number of elements that that array has. So how do I check how many elements an array have? Do you know? Has length, exactly. So again, because we are inside JSX, we need to open curly braces and then the name of the array, that is props.scores dot length. That's the length of the array. And in first, we need to pass the first element of the array. You know how to do that? How do you access the first element in an array?
It's with the zero.
Yes, exactly. It's the name of the array, props.scores, and then square brackets, and the index. The first one is 0, and the second one is 1. Props.scores 1. And this should be it. Okay, so next one. We have a fixture of two teams. So on the first one, we need a class name. So let's check the test. So we have a class name fixtures, then we have another class fixture, then fixtures should have one element attached to that class, and fixture also one element. So here should be, because we already know fixtures, this one should be fixture. And then we have class name team1 Tottenham, and then because it's the other team and we are expecting a class name team2, so here we need to put class name equals team2, and then the result is expecting it to be 3-1. So we just type 3-1, test it. next one. Yeah. So I'm going to do now the upper intermediate. Pardon, sorry, upper beginner. Let's play it. So we have a component welcome that is going to return a div, and then inside the div we should return this text. So we can simply type the text, welcome to React, and then a semicolon. Yes. Again, another component called president with some props. Then we have a div. Let me just format this a bit. Wait. And now inside we are expecting to find an element with a class name first name. So let's type it. So div, then class name. So yeah, first name. And then let's close it. And inside the text is expected to be first name and then the prop first name. So we have to type first name and then props dot first name. So let me make this more readable, fit the screen. Okay, so this is the first one, but it's also expecting to find another element with a class last name and the text last name, and then afterwards the prop last name. So let me copy and paste. Yeah, and now last name, and then here last name. Oops, I have a typo here, should be lowercase, otherwise it's not going to work. Then here is last name, and let me check. Yeah, I think this should be it. Let's test it. Yes, submit it.
How did you know that you needed to put the parentheses
The
around the div?
The parenthesis is to be able to split it in several lines, because for instance if you see here, to know where it ends and where it starts, if you do a straight line, you know it's opened here and it's going to finish here. So you can do it on the same line, but then, so if I don't put the parentheses, I need to start typing here, just straight after the return. It doesn't allow me to do it on the next line. And if I start here, then when I close it, it's not going to be on the same vertical line. It's going to work, but it's going to be harder to read. So that's why I put the parentheses. Okay, so this one. Basically, this function is calculating the average. We don't need to calculate it, it's going to do it for us. So we need to check if the average is greater or equal 50, display well done. Otherwise, display keep training. So we need to delete this, and we need to check if get average, that is going to return us the average, is greater or equal 50, then well done. Otherwise, keep training. So let's Okay, so now the next one. So film score. So if the score is above 75, return excellent. If it's above 50, return nice. Otherwise, return poor. So the way I do it is return. We don't even need to render a div. We can do it straight with JavaScript and text strings. So I'm going to do props dot, the name of the prop is score, props dot score. So we want to check if the score is greater or equal 75, excellent. We could start by less than 50, but I like doing it this way. we need to type a bit less. So it's greater or equal 75, then we return the text excellent. Otherwise, I'm going to perform another test. I'm going to check for another condition. So if props.score is greater than 50, I no longer need to check greater than 75 because all the rest are. So first of all, we are checking for greater than 75. So if they are not greater than 75, I need to check it of the rest if they are greater than 50. Right? So you see here the condition. So greater or equal 50 and less than 75. But I don't need to check for less than 75 because all of them are less than 75. Otherwise they would stop here. So now next. So to make this readable, I indentate on each, after each question mark, I make an indentation, so a tab, and then I put both the true and the false. So now I'm making another condition, so I indentate again, so if it's greater or equal than 50, nice. It has to be between quotes because it's a string. So nice and otherwise poor. And it should be it. Let's test it. Yes. The next one. So the total score. So we need to calculate the total score. All of the three arrays have 3 elements, so we could add all of them, or we can get the result from here. It's telling us that is, but it's not always the same, so we need to add them. So I can either add them one by one or use a method called reduce. But to explain it is going to be a bit long, so yeah, I'll use reduce anyway. So inside the div, we need to pass this text. The total score is, so I don't need the curly braces now, so the total score is colon and then space. And now we need to get the scores dot reduce, and then this is a method that is going to work in arrays, and I think I'm going to explain it in a future session because it's a bit complex to explain how it works. But basically, if you type this a plus b, this is going to return you the sum of all the elements in the array. So if I test it, oops, I did something wrong. So scores, oh yes, because I'm missing something. Do you know what I'm missing?
Props.
Not props, because we already said here scores equals props dot scores, so I can only type scores. But here we are inside JSX, right?
Oh.
And I'm typing JavaScript. So we do this, now it should work. Yes. Okay. So that was it. I'm going to stop streaming. Thank you.